I've been waiting for this moment. I hope you realize how excited I am to talk about today's topic. On Twitter, Reuters just posted a hidden corridor, 9 meters long, has been discovered close to the main entrance of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And this could lead to further findings. Yes. Believe it or not, the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the oldest man-made structures that still stands on planet Earth, has just had a major discovery of a new corridor near the north face entrance. And here's a video where they sent a camera into the structure to see the corridor inside. It's about 9 meters long. This was detected back in 2017 in a project called the Scan Pyramids Project, where what they did is they used something called Muon technology. The way I understand it as a non-science person, Muon particles hit a reflector inside the pyramid, and then they can find out where there are gaps. This right here is the corridor that they've now explored. But look at this one. This is the big void. The big void. A massive cavity, a massive, like, empty space inside the pyramid that they've never explored before. It was found in 2017, and at the time, when neither of these were explored, it was like, oh, you know, that's interesting. Maybe it's just, like, some noise. Maybe it's just an error. The fact that this one exists should also mean that this one does physically exist. There is a gap there. So what is it? What is the Scan Pyramid's big void? If this now leads to more exploration, like, the problem is getting access to this because it's all stone, right? This area right here is pure, like, limestone. So you'd have to get through that without damaging the entire structure. Tough. You might be wondering, like, what's all this matter, right? Pyramid's like, what, 5,000 years old? Who cares? This could tell us how it's built. My favorite theory for how the construction of the pyramid happened is the internal ramp theory proposed by the French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin, who, instead of thinking that they had an external ramp where they pulled all the stones up the side of the pyramid, it's not really logical, it's not really practical, because the ramp would have to be bigger than the pyramid itself. So Jean-Pierre proposed this internal ramp theory. That too has its weaknesses in explaining how the pyramid was built, because you see this right here, this is the king's chamber, and the lines here, the horizontal lines, are massive granite blocks. And these are massive, 70-ton stones individually, which is 70,000 kilograms. And these would require an estimated 600 men to pull up a ramp. Jean-Pierre's theory is that they used the Grand Gallery as a counterweight to lift stones. However, why would you have a ramp for such heavy stones underneath the stones themselves? That makes no sense. Therefore, hear me out. What if the big void is used as a counterweight to lift the stones up here? Because that makes a lot more sense. When I heard the news of this announcement, I got all giddy, because one thing is, like, the science has been around for 2017, and the scientists, they kind of know it's true, but it's very hard to get it through to Egyptologists. So if you don't mind, can we please watch a video about the internal ramp theory on the please? Just once. I just need to use today as an outlet for my curiosity about this topic, and then we never have to talk about it again. One day, let me have my Pyramid Day, International Pyramid Day. So this is a YouTube channel, if you're interested in the topic, History for Granite, and another channel called Ancient Architects make a lot of good videos about this topic. And this is the one that kind of discusses where the internal ramp theory currently stands. Sit back, let's learn about some old stones.
Welcome to History for Granite.
Okay.
Join me to explore ancient Egypt.
I feel like I'm sharing my hobby with you guys right now. So
please subscribe to the channel to get notified when new videos are published, and thank you so much for growing the channel.
I wasn't even subbed. I'm not a real fan. How stupid is that? I am the YouTube viewer that I complain about. I literally watch all this guy's videos, and yet I'm not subscribed. I watch this one, I watch this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Maybe you are the same with my channel, Wirtual TV. It helps the creators a lot, even though, you you just watch them. You could just hit the sub button, you know?
The fact that it remains
appreciate
the tallest man-made structure for about 4 millennia is almost unbelievable. It's no wonder that the engineering required to raise all those massive stones
2.2 million stones
is a problem that has fascinated humanity.
Like, count 1, 2, 3, 2.2 million individual stones
Throughout history. So interesting is the question of how the pyramid was built that there are more
That's
theories
so many
about
stones.
its construction than I can manage to keep track of. This tradition of inquiry goes all the way back to Greek
How tall is
historian-
it? 139 meters, but I think it was meant to be a little bit taller. Because on top here, there's supposed to be a casing stone made of really fine limestone that reflects the sun. So it kind of looked like shining diamond on top of the pyramid, but this one is since gone.
Herodotus claimed that the pyramid was first completed as a stepped structure, just like the earliest large pyramids at Saqqara and Meidum. Afterwards, a series of wooden machines on each tier would raise the final blocks using the mechanical advantage of a lever. He also claims with certainty that the pyramid received its final smooth dressing starting from the top down to the bottom.
Herodotus is also where the idea that the pyramids were built by slaves come from, because there was some writing that, you know, it would take a mad king to force so many men to build the pyramid. But that also is questioned nowadays.
Modern archaeology has given us remarkably few clues about large pyramid construction techniques, and so the gap between what is known and what is possible is frustratingly large. The only building technique that most everyone can agree on is the employment of ramps to drag the blocks upward.
Let's talk about ramps.
There remain a few isolated examples of ancient Egyptian construction ramps that were never dismantled. But the size, slope, quantity...
I know I usually stream Trackmania, but let's talk about pyramid ramp structures for a second. One of the most like, oh, let's build a pyramid. One of the most easy to think of designs is the one behind my face cam. However, the problem is, if you build a ramp like this, that ramp requires more material than the entirety of the pyramid itself. So you effectively have to build 2 pyramids. Because it can't be too steep if you're pulling, you know, really big stones, this does not really make sense. The Goyon structure. The problem with this one is that it goes around the pyramid. So the pyramid would be like inside of this. So let's say one worker messes up and places some stones inaccurately. It's going to be a logistical nightmare to fix. This one is wild. I'm not familiar. This one is wild. This one is wild. But the Houdin ramp is the one we're looking at. This is a really solid case for how the pyramid was built, in my opinion.
Comes from French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin. In the early 2000s, Houdin developed a comprehensive
This guy's my favorite anime character.
Houdin co-authored a book with Egyptologist Bob Breyer presenting the idea of an internal ramp to the wider public. There was also a documentary made about this collaboration titled Khufu Revealed, and it's one of the more enjoyable stories told about investigating the Great Pyramid. You can watch it on YouTube, and I've linked it in the description.
So this guy, he basically got the idea for this from his father, who was a civil engineer, and then he just dedicated his life to researching, could they have built the pyramid this way? Or like, how could they have built it? And this is his theory, right? No one believes him in Egypt when he proposes it.
On October 25th of 2022, this new paper incorporates data and analysis from the Scan Pyramids mission, which in 2017 announced the discovery of several hidden empty spaces within the Great Pyramid. These spaces include a corridor-like void above
This is the one that was explored today.
An enormous cavity known as the Big Void,
and then the massive big void up
here. And a small void high on the northeast corner. An extremely concise synopsis of Houdin's main ideas are as follows. The Great Pyramid may have been constructed using an internal spiral ramp in combination with an external straight ramp on the south side. The external ramp would only reach about 1/3 up the pyramid and be responsible for transporting the heaviest granite and limestone beams that make up the ceilings of the upper chamber. Following completion of the King's Chamber, the internal ramp would facilitate the building of the upper 2/3 of the pyramid without needing an excessively large external ramp.
This is important, okay? This is important. Take notes, guys. It's all about how did they lift the stones in the King's Chamber. That's the biggest mystery.
These two concepts, an internal spiral ramp and the Grand Gallery counterweight opposite an external ramp, are Houdin's most important ideas. His construction model has other details, and we'll analyze some of those as well, but the ramp design and counterweights are the core of his theory. The internal ramp removes the need for a prohibitively large external ramp. It also would allow the pyramid geometry to be constantly checked, which would otherwise be obscured by a spiraling
the two problems.
Ramp.
Long ramp or spiral?
Ramp opposite the Grand Gallery
but maybe something in between
allows the largest blocks to be elevated onto the pyramid without needing to change direction or be hauled by 600 workers per block. Jean-Pierre Houdin's ramp concepts were innovative, but they were also supported by a reasonable amount of physical evidence that is plain to see.
It's crazy though that
the Sun Temple of Nyusara has a very...
It's crazy that there are so many like mysteries around it. People are going to say like, oh, but when they found out, I don't know if they have a definitive answer.
Clear internal ramp structure. So the building concept is present in the archaeological record. It was only Egyptologist Bob Breyer, a specialist in mummies with a little connection to the pyramid.
It's like the perfect anime plot. This guy, he has the theory to like solve the entire mystery. No one believes him except for his one like crazy friend who also studies the same topic. And then the guy that you saw earlier, this guy, he's called Zahi Hawass. He's like the big corporate anime villain from the Ministry of Egyptian Antiquity. As you'll soon see, the reason why he's so opposed to this theory is that if it's true, then he is in part responsible for permanently damaging the pyramid. Because there's a part of the pyramid called the Great Step, which this guy believes was used as like a gap, like a small gap to raise stones. And they thought it was like just a step in a staircase. So they filled in a missing part so that tourists can walk through it. Essentially added a bunch of concrete to the pyramid to fill in like a missing step, a broken step. So this guy, the anime villain, is liable for kind of damaging the pyramid if he is correct with his theory.
Breyer was granted access to climb the Great Pyramid
you'll see.
The notch and adjacent cavity on the northeastern corner, which corresponds to where Houdin theorizes the internal ramp would have made a turn.
This was in his documentary. He wanted to check one part with a thermal camera, literally not even touching the pyramid. Just like, can I go up the pyramid, look at it with a thermal camera? And they said, no, you can't. Actually, you cannot. That's too dangerous. His friend could, without a thermal camera, just look at it. But they weren't allowed to go up there with a thermal camera.
His ideas were popular enough that scientists began contacting him about methods to investigate further. The most important method proposed to further investigate the pyramids was muography.
It's all a pyramid scheme.
For the detection of internal spaces within the masonry based upon how many muon particles either pass through or get absorbed by the stonework. This HIP Institute led a consortium to launch the Scan Pyramids mission, a scientific expedition using non-invasive scanning techniques to analyze the internal structure of the pyramid.
It is so smart.
But the Egyptian Ministry of
It is so smart. They go into the bottom room of the pyramid, which is below the Queen's Chamber, put like a reflector here, and then it receives like muon particles coming through the pyramid from all angles. And then they can check where there are gaps and stuff.
The mission had obtained its authorizations under the condition of being agnostic, and that the data of the possible discoveries being put at the disposal of the researchers for free. Houdin elaborates that the mission of investigating the pyramids and the opportunity for discovery was more important than any personal credit he might receive.
This guy is such a Chad, right? So what he did when he worked with these people is he said, okay, it's cool that you guys want to do this with me, But from here on out, I'm signing off the mission. Because these guys don't like me, the pyramid people. So therefore, I will just reclude myself from all research so that they can't say, oh, he's in it and he's a conspiracy theorist. You guys go find the results. I have to just sit this out and not participate at all. He didn't want any credit, anything whatsoever on the papers. He just wanted the results to be out there.
As the old saying goes, no good deed ever goes unpunished. And a self-described scientific committee led by former Minister Zahi Hawass was appointed to oversee the work done by Scan Pyramids.
As the interior came from a French guy who knows nothing. Because there is no evidence.
Look. Okay. Very important what Zahi Hawass says here.
Here's how Zahi Hawass described the Scan Pyramids mission right after these findings.
As the interior came from a French guy who knows nothing. Because there is no evidence. Give me one evidence to support this. Actually, the scanning pyramid project, most of it is to support his theory.
So, anime hero guy says, I don't want to be a part of this because they're going to use that I'm part of it as a way to discredit it. So he just goes out of it completely and just says, you guys do this, right? The villain guy still says, oh, hero guy is part of this, so it's bad. He tries to just discredit it based on that Jean-Pierre is part of it. He knew this was coming. 5-dimensional chess. So he just went out of it before it happened.
Fair that Hawass prejudiced the Scan Pyramids mission based upon his personal opinions of Jean-Pierre Houdin, who had recused himself from participating in it. The Scan Pyramids mission would go on to detect a huge cavity above the Grand Gallery.
It's so insane that this is in there.
Comparable in size and orientation.
40 meters! There's a 40-meter room in the pyramid. The reason I'm talking about all this today is because this SPNFC, this means Scan Pyramids North Face Corridor, was something they detected with Muon technology. It was explored today. This right here. Hidden corridor, 9 meters, the North Face.
And here we are.
And so if this one was found with Muon technology, then the other one is probably also there. And this all kind of supports internal ramp theory. The Zahi Hawass is not wrong when he says that. Like, it supports internal ramp theory. It does. But it's also just, like, physical, scientific evidence of it. Like, the fact that they can scan a pyramid and find that with it, and then later also use this on every other pyramid is just crazy.
In the Great Pyramid. These findings of the Big Void were presented to Hawass's committee on September 13th, 2017. He imposed the following instructions. 1. That no media disclosure was permitted at this stage. 2. The results must be published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal before being revealed to the media.
Good.
And 3. The Scan Pyramids mission could not continue scanning work unless the first 2 instructions were complied with. These conditions would set the Scan Pyramids mission up for failure for many reasons. It frequently takes up to a year to get a scientific paper
published. It takes so long to get a scientific paper.
And it would not be easy to keep such a huge discovery secret. However, due to the top-level expertise of the Scan Pyramids scientists and the significance of the results, the journal Nature agreed to fast-track the paper, and the results were reviewed and then published on November 2nd, 2019.
They got it fast-tracked. That's how big this is.
Captivated by the announcement of the Scan Pyramids Big Void, and it was truly a landmark moment for the pyramids of Egypt. David Lightbody, who would later publish a paper questioning the...
Yes! Chad is having a great old movie day with me. We're watching the pyramids.
I got you some water, by the way. Yeah, but it's like the local...
Oh, yeah, the local water. Yeah, I see that.
I don't want to,
no, don't show it. I'm not sponsored by that water brand. You're right. You can just put it in... This one is water fridge as well. You can...
Fridge, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can put it in the water fridge. That's good. Bear, I want to tell you about this, and I want to hear your reaction.
All right, okay.
They made a discovery today, or they announced a discovery.
Really? Like a new thing?
Which is that on the North Face corridor of the pyramid, it was discovered in 2017 by the Scan Pyramids project, where they did like a space scan of the pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And they found this corridor, and now they were able to explore that actually exists. So the existence of this implies the existence of this too, because they found that too. The big
void?
The Big Void. Isn't that ridiculous?
I have to be honest, chat. I actually love this type of stuff. This is more interesting to me than dark matter in the universe. The big void in the pyramid?
The scan pyramids BV, the big void.
Yeah, because what else is there? Is the rest just solid rock, or is there?
Well, they found like some anomalies near the top too, but the most notable was the north face corridor and the big void.
That's crazy.
So what this does though, or what people think this is right now, is something that looks like the Grand Gallery.
Yeah.
That they used as a counterweight or leverage to pull up these big granite blocks in the King's Chamber. That's this part.
The King's Chamber is the most impressive to me.
Yep.
Because, yes, the square blocks impressive,
so much granite.
But the size of some of those blocks are insane.
We gotta try to get through the rest of this before a couple of the days, so let's just speed through it. But thank you so much for the water.
Can I do dab number 2? Chat, you know what to do. Can I get some dabs in chat? Because I need
dabbing.
I need to see how's my form. Oh, he's pretty decent.
Yep.
All right, let's see. I haven't warmed up. Okay.
So this is Egyptologist right after they announced the scan, and it goes like, oh, it's such a tough time right now because everything we believe is false. Yes.
He's mentally formed.
It's darkest
Although
before
I
the
love
dawn.
Egyptology and archaeology. At times, it has caused massive headaches and heartaches.
Wait,
for me
is the game
and for
on stream
people I know.
Pyramids of
The last few
Egypt?
days have been one of those times.
The scan, the
However,
scan
today
pyramids.
It seems that it just might have been the case that it's darkest before dawn. In my opinion, the Grand Gallery as a construction ramp was always the strongest aspect of Houdin's ideas. But the original design he presented didn't seem optimal.
Right. So just to quickly explain this, because it's a bit like high in detail. What he's saying here is that Houdin's theory for using this as a leverage ramp doesn't make sense when you got all the heavy stones here. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 70-ton granite stones, okay? It doesn't make sense to put a ramp to lift them underneath, because how on earth are you lifting 70,000 kilograms up there from here, right? So you'd kind of need this to be higher. Having a ramp up here would solve this problem. So this just supports this theory.
Even before the discovery of the big void, I think that Hawass and others were beginning to suspect that
Very interesting part. Very interesting part.
Had merit.
Listen up.
It was particularly interesting that in the 2017 book, Giza and the Pyramids,
this is written by the villain guy.
there is not a single mention of the so-called Great Step at the top of the Grand Gallery. You would think a stone with such a famous name, placed exactly in the center of the pyramid's north-south axis, would at least deserve a token of recognition in the definitive history of Giza. It can only be intentional that Zahi Hawass would omit mentioning the so-called Great Step in his Giza and the Pyramids book, and I think Jean-Pierre Houdin is the reason why. If Houdin is correct, and the Great Step is not a step at all, but instead a trench as it looked over 100 years ago, then Egypt's Antiquities Department has greatly damaged the Great Pyramid with this inaccurate restoration.
If the Grand Gallery was a leverage mechanism to raise it, and this was just a trench for ropes, and Egyptology thought it was a step and like literally placed a bunch of concrete here, then they are liable for permanently damaging the pyramid. So they kind of have to deny this theory, because if not, that's pretty bad for them, right?
This gives plenty of motive for Hawass to reject Houdin's ideas, because they implicate the ministry in destroying a critical piece of history.
This is why I'm heading a team. And with me are 3 foreigners who are expertise on the pyramids, and we are correcting them.
I think we kind of summarized this a lot. Houdin updated his theory, added like, okay, if the Great Void is a ramp, how would that affect the theory? Added some, new things, casing stones. What I am most excited about is the potential that because the north face chamber is proven to exist, that should also mean that the big void exists. And if they ever explore this, we'll likely understand 1, how old the pyramid is, 2, how it was built, and 3, if it was internal ramp theory or not, right? I hope that will one day be the case, but getting through this amount of stone without breaking the structure is very difficult. I don't know how they're going to do that. And yeah.